The book of Revelation is not a prophecy about the future, no matter what the TV or backwoods preachers tell you. Let me explain. Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. There's all kinds of drama that's been inflicted using the book of Revelation. I mean, there's dragons, there's famines, there's all kinds of awful things, and the mark of the beast. We'll get into that later in detail. But the big picture is, it's not about the future. Like, I remember being taught as a kid there was going to be a chip implanted in your skin, that at some point you were going to be asked whether or not you were a Christian, and if you said the wrong thing, if you said you were a Christian, that your head would be cut off. I mean, I was told all kinds of really scary things, that like the time was going to come where it was going to cost you a lot to be a Christian. When you look at the first couple of chapters, you actually see letters written to actual places, addressing actual churches in those places. This book is meant to comfort Christians and encourage them to remain faithful in the midst of being persecuted in the late first century. So it's actually all sorts of codes. And by codes, I mean metaphors. And it's like they're trying to talk to the first century Christians who are being actively persecuted, right? They are being persecuted at this just insane level by the Roman government, which is in power and which Christianity will sort of occupy very soon, but not yet. They are being routinely victimized and brutalized and by the ruling powers, and it is really hard to be a Christian. And so this text sort of capitalizes on that and tries to say, no, it's not going to always be like that. In fact, very soon, everything is going to turn over, which is interesting because the way that it talks about it, it's not an undoing of the systemic power. It's actually just turning the power over, which is in direct contradiction to the Gospels and the way Jesus talks about kind of changing the whole system and undoing the unjust system. And that's why Christians early on didn't like it. They saw it as being in contradiction with the sort of revolutionary teachings of Jesus that started to come against power structures in a significant way. Eventually, there was a pope named Athanasius that used it and sort of championed it, and that's how it got into the Bible ultimately. But let's talk about this imagery. And I'll do that by talking about this one image, the image of the mark of the beast. And you can do this with the imagery sort of all across the book. But the mark of the beast, you probably know it as 666, right? So this is using something called gematria. In the Hebrew language, there are the letters are also the numbers. And so each letter has a numerical value, which means that there are words that will add up to certain numbers, and some words add up to the same number. There's all sorts of really interesting mystical traditions around that we're not going to get into. But if you take Nero's name in Greek and you transliterate it, use the Hebrew characters that sound the same to sort of sound it out, and you add up those characters, they come to, wait for it, 666. So 666 is a symbol for Nero's name, and Nero is the person that is supposedly the Antichrist. And they were very scared at that time that Nero was in hiding, was going to come back, was going to return, even though he was actually dead at the moment. And there was this very real fear that he was going to return, and it was going to be even worse than the first time he was in power. You know, I'm not a person that wants to tell you to just completely reject books of your sacred text, like passages of your sacred text. I want to say that if you are a Christian, you've got to deal with that text in a way that actually helps you, that takes the meanings of that text whenever it happened and helps you translate them into your life today so that you can have a deeper connection with God through that. So that's the real problem here, because when you get distracted and you think that it's all about prophecy about the future, it means that you don't actually focus on how it deals and helps you today. And that's a real problem, because it's not about the future. And you're going to spend all of this time, people spend all of this time talking about the future and scaring the crap out of little kids, only to miss the main point. And here's one of the points, right? It's that when things get hard, when you are a person of faith and your life is difficult, you can have hope and you can remain faithful. And in fact, there is something beautiful and powerful about remaining faithful and committed to your spiritual center in the midst of very difficult times in your life. And in fact, remaining faithful and centered in your spiritual beliefs is actually one of the most important and helpful things to get you through those difficult times. So there's that. And that's just one of many ways that you can take the book of Revelation and its bigger message and say, okay, how is this helping me be the best version of myself in the world today? But as far as being a prophecy about the future, no, it's not that.